If you want to make a difference in America, in public life or private enterprise, first, be a man or woman of integrity and principle and knowledge and decency. This nation, I believe today, more than anything else, is in desperate need of men and women of character and integrity and courage in high places. We find ourselves in extraordinarily perilous times. While the argument goes on Capitol Hill, one recrimination follows another, our enemies quietly make their plans to destroy our way of life. This is a time of enormous importance in the life of freedom in the world. If you want to make a difference, be different. But how can we put feet on that? Well, first I think of that ancient text that says, a man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. It's a wonderful story about King David. Maybe some of you have read it. If you enjoy the Christian or the Jewish tradition, there was David. He was one of about a dozen brothers. He was the runt of the litter. When the prophet comes to the house, he says, I'm here to anoint a king. And all the big NFL football quarterback brothers show up, right? Maybe some of you read the story. If you haven't, do. He goes down the line, says, not him, not him, not him, right? All these American Idol looking guys, right? And then he says, is this it? And the father says, well, I got the guy out with the sheep, well, he's a runt. He says, bring him in. And he brings him in and he anoints him as king because he says, man does not look at the outward appearance. Or man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. The prophet in that moment saw the heart of a man that had developed in David from his youth, men and women. In his youth, in the field with the sheep, he had become a young man of integrity and set his life on a course of significance. We would learn later that he had faced a lion and a bear. When he stood up against his own Goliath and other soldiers were clinking and clanking in their armor for fear of standing up for what they believed in, he spoke with the conviction of someone who had been in the wilderness on his own and learned faith and courage. And he said, he who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the claw of the bear will deliver me from this Philistine. Men and women, this is the time of your life. It may feel like you're tending sheep in obscurity. But this is the time in your life when the qualities of the hero and the statesman are being forged in your life or not. If you want to make a difference, be different. Ask yourself, where's your heart? Where's your passion? And if that makes no sense to you, you can get there by asking yourself the following questions. Not just, who are you? What do you believe? But what do you live for? And if you really want to know what's in your heart, ask this question. What would you die for? Who would you die for? Are there people, are there ideas, are there causes in your life for which you would lay that life down? Find that, men and women, and you will find your heart. Where is your treasure? Where a man's treasure is, there his heart will also be. Are you investing in the time, in knowledge and relationships and the building of integrity in your life that will create a treasure of character that will serve you and this nation in the future, or are you working on the outside of your life? It's a powerful question. We live in a society that is so focused on the exterior, don't we? I mean, we're so interested in how we look, in what we weigh. As people get to be my age, they start seeing people that pull them a little tighter. Tummy tuck, tummy staple. which are all fine, and I don't criticize those things. But I do criticize them when we work on the outward appearance and we don't work on the heart. So how do we work on the heart? Let me give you a few thoughts, and then I'll close. Are you taking time at this time in your life to understand America? And I really want to challenge you on this, men and women. I mean, some of you are business majors, and you go, well, I don't read that history stuff. You know, I'm a business major. I'm a Republican. Right? Yeah. I'll square your books up. Who's John Adams? All right? But men and women, if you aspire, and you obviously all do, to being a part of the life of this nation in leadership, either as elected officials or as public servants or as men and women in the business community who support these causes, understand America. Take time at this time in your life to invest in your own appreciation for this extraordinary experiment in democracy. Understand the risks that our founders took. 400 ships bobbing in the harbor of New York City in the summer of 1776. The largest armada in the history of the world. The largest city in the United States of America in that summer was Philadelphia. Population 75,000 people. There were 40,000 British soldiers unarmed, battle-tested. The toughest, most successful army mankind had ever known, floating in the harbor. And our founders came together and signed a document that 8 months earlier the King of England had forbidden. Why did they do that? I challenge you today that if you are going to call yourself a Republican, you need to understand the Republic. If you're going to call yourself a Republican, you need to understand those and the motivations of those who risk their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honors to create a republic. And that's my challenge to you this morning. Read the great works. Read the biographies, not the stale history books. Read the great speeches. Understand the great causes. And use this time in your youth to pour the foundations of idealism that we so desperately will need in our future leaders. You cannot lead America if you do not know her. And you cannot know her if you do not study her. And study all of the extraordinary, brave men and women who have stood for her through the generations. Lastly, let me say this. To lead this country begins with to know America. But I also challenge you to know him who set this miracle of democracy on these wilderness shores. The streaming throngs of thousands that risked everything for 200 years before the founding of this nation came here because in virtually every instance they saw it as a shining city on a hill. It was a place where freedom could be born. And they didn't think freedom was their idea. And they were right. It is for freedom that Christ has set you free, the good book tells us. If you go to the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia, you will see inscribed on the Liberty Bell, Leviticus chapter 25, proclaim liberty throughout all the land and unto all the inhabitants thereof. America is about liberty because our founders understood that he was about liberty. America was driven by a belief that our rights proceeded not from the heart of a generous people, but from the heart of a sovereign God, a creator recited in our own Declaration of Independence, who endows every man and woman on the planet with unalienable rights of life and liberty and the virtuous pursuit of happiness. And that's a powerful idea. And so as much as I say to you this morning, know our history, know our founders, know those that led this country, I challenge you, whatever your tradition, know him who our founders cherished. I give tours every day in the Capitol building. I'm really the best tour guide there. I love to do it. I stand in the rotunda and I point out the 4 paintings in the rotunda that depict the 4 most important events in the 200 years prior to the founding of our nation. The Founders Committee selected those paintings to be commissioned 200 years ago. One is the discovery of the Mississippi, and you see a cross being erected in the painting as they prepare to have a prayer service. One is Christopher Columbus landing in the New World, but everyone around him is kneeling, and there are crosses in the air behind him because his diary records that he offered a Christian prayer. The next is the Pilgrims embarking, and they're holding a reproduction in the painting of the very Bible that King James banned because of its commentaries about freedom when he issued the King James Bible. And the last one, I always wink at the kids and say, I know I didn't make it in the Walt Disney movie, but that's the baptism of Pocahontas. In the movie, she liked to talk to trees. In reality, she liked to talk to Jesus, and actually was responsible for returning to her native land and leading thousands of Native Americans to her newfound faith in Christ. And so I remind them with a smile, the next time you hear about all this separation of church and state, remember our founders commissioned paintings of 2 prayer services, a Bible study, and a baptism, and hung them in the rotunda. Know him. Know America. Know him. We need you to lead this Republican Party. Thank you and God bless you.